everyone, and thank you for joining us today on this episode of Where Media Lives, a video podcast by AWS about the media and entertainment industry. And I'm your host, Allison. Today, I'm joined by Lewis Smithingham. Thank you for joining me. He is Senior Vice President of Innovation at MediaMonks. Lewis, welcome.
Hey, thanks you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, Lewis, we've met before. We met recently at NAB during the Sustainability Award show, and I was really so excited about the story that you had to tell that I wanted to invite you here to help our audience understand more about the benefits that you found in sustainability in the cloud. But let's start at the beginning. And for anybody who's not familiar with MediaMonks, maybe you want to give us a quick overview of what you do and help us gain some context.
Sure. So MediaMonks is a 8,700 person advertising, consulting, tech services, broadcast, entertainment, content company that makes, we like to say we make glass to glass advertising and content. So we create the strategy behind it, we create the consulting behind it, and then we also actually do the production. In the context of this call, I run a live team, a team of live broadcast engineers all over the world that build shows. Everything from large-scale sports events to Post Malone concerts.
Okay, that's great. So that sort of frames it up for us. And in the story that you were telling at NAB, I think this started with a need that came out of the COVID pandemic. Tell me what happened to have you you started by migrating your workloads to the cloud.
So we had this, when I joined MediaMonks, I owned a company before this, and I joined MediaMonks to scale what I'd been doing before. And I had this gorgeous vision deck of like, we're going to spend $10 million on all this equipment, and we're going to have these trucks, and this is how it'll work. It's going to be so cool. And like, I'm a gear dork, and so I was just super stoked to have more gear. And then 3 months in, COVID hit. All of a sudden, we got slammed with huge amounts of requests for shows. Like we had all the business, we wanted to do the thing, but didn't have a way to do it. And a friend of mine who was at Conan at the time, who's now at AWS, texted me this chart from SVG of a signal flow that Riot Games had been doing, and said, look at this insane dark magic that they're doing in order to do their shows right now. This is crazy. Like, we should run everything in the cloud. And so we started migrating everything we did to the cloud. And as a byproduct of that, it ended up doing really interesting stuff with the team. So we're a global company. I think our biggest hubs are Sao Paulo and Hilversum, which is just outside of Amsterdam. And over the years in my career, I've found a whole like rogues gallery of oddballs that are specialists in different things. And I basically just started calling the smartest people I knew and just hired them all.
Well, let me stop you there for a minute, because you make it sound so, we just moved everything to the cloud, like that took nothing. So maybe we should dive into what were your fears and concerns as you went into this? What was the testing that you had to do to verify that this was going to work? Help the audience understand what that migration looked like.
I was completely terrified the entire time. I think I stopped being terrified about a year ago, but it was sheer terror. As a person that's, came up crimping cables, like I took the cable test, like,
and there's no room for error in live. You're live.
No, if you go off air, you're dead. I mean, in my spare time, I'm a technical scuba diver, and I liken it to that. You have, when I dive to 100, 130 feet, 150 feet, I've got 3 tanks on me. I can have 3 failures and be relatively okay still. Mm-hmm. And live is the same approach. You approach everything as if you're off air. There are no retakes. There are no edits. There's no way to fix those problems. And so when you go into something like we had gone into the industry doing things in a way that had been done, 56 years? Realistically, there haven't been the craziest changes. In terms of how we tested, we brought the smartest people we could find into the room, and we started experimenting and playing and engaging and slowly rolling we rolled our infrastructure right in there.
But you had this reference architecture as a starting point, so it sounds like you kind of knew what it might look like, and you had to figure out how to plug your workflow into that.
we copied Riot's homework, if I'm going to be
Okay.
totally honest. There's a diagram from, I think it's like March 27th or March 20th, 2020, where we like looked at that and we're like, oh, well, I see they're doing that there and they're doing that there. And we've played with that tool. So let's figure that out. And part of the problem is a lot of this stuff was not set up for 4K. It was not set up for
Sure.
60. It was not set up for VR. So we had to start finding our own ways to bring these different tools together.
You went through the testing, you got comfortable, you made the migration. Where this all really leads us to is this, I don't know if stumbling, I think stumbling was the word you used at the show.
Right.
You sort of stumbled into some sustainability benefits. And I found it fascinating that it wasn't really your first goal, but ended up being really meaningful to your company. Tell us about that.
We're very, very green as a company, but production is this place where it's sort of like, there's no way it can happen. Like you have to do it that way. It's been done that way. And I think I said this in AB, like that's how it's always been as well. Production. I remember first time going on set being like, what are we going to do with these sets when we're done? Oh, we just cut them down. It's fine. But that's like a forest.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we didn't go in trying to be sustainable, but then we got a call from one of our engineers who's like, hey, do you know that Amazon has a sustainability, like you can tell you how much carbon footprint.
Yeah, we have a carbon footprint tool. That's right.
Yeah, it's a calculator in the tool. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I wonder what ours is. We looked at it and it was like, whoa, in a month, we've only produced 0.1 metric tons of carbon, which is effectively, I believe it's like a round trip flight between LA and New York is 7x that or 6 or 7x that.
Okay.
And then we started looking at, okay, instead of flying 19 to 26 people to every game
and all the
every
equipment
show,
that you
and hold on, it's not even like that gets even worse. Instead of 26 people, it's 4 people. We are usually ground freighting now. Our equipment is like the size of a mini fridge at this point, maybe 2 mini fridges. We're working on the metrics for this, but you can sort of see that the visual image of that physical carbon footprint. And so we came into this place where I think our approach to sustainability is a subtractive approach.
So I think this is a wonderful tale, and I love that you have been evangelizing this because so many in the industry need to hear that. Like you said, so many are still doing it like it's always been done. As the evangelist that you've been, what is the advice that you would give to some production company who's not yet made that move?
I think you need to look at why you're doing things is the first thing. And if the reason why you're doing something is because that's how it's always been done, generally speaking, that's probably a bad reason. Like, I mean, I know that sounds odd, but like the idea that like if your only reason for doing something technically is because that's how I've always done it, tradition tends to be the last holdout of the ignorant and tends to be a space where innovation doesn't play. I think looking at how others work is going to be a place where people need to be more open. In terms of how we evangelize this, I think it's, look, as we shift into larger format viewers, at NAB we worked with Red and a couple other camera manufacturers to look at how 8K could be broadcast directly at raw, uncompressed. And the physicality of that sort of medium, doing that in person is brutal. It's not really possible. And so working with cloud allows access to a level of scaled compute and a level of scaled workforce that previously would not be possible. We're no longer casting our teams, and I think talent plays a major part of this story, where we're no longer casting our teams based on who can show up to a monitor or who can show up to a truck. We cast based on who's right for the job.
Well, Louis, we thank you. I think just the evangelism itself is a great benefit to all of our customers, all the media companies out there. So that was, part and parcel of why we wanted to speak with you today. So we appreciate it. And thank you all for joining us with this conversation with Louis. And we hope you have a wonderful day, and we will see you next time.